The 49ers recently received some surprising news. Later, we'll have a discussion about the controversy surrounding the quarterback, but before we dive into that, I want to express my deep gratitude to everyone for helping me reach 10,000 subscribers. This was a milestone I never expected to achieve, and I am truly honored. To show my appreciation, my wife and I decided to offer a $50 gift card so you can enhance your gear collection. To participate, simply be subscribed and like this video. I'll gather all the subscribers who are able to like the video, and we'll use a random name generator to choose a winner. The announcement will be made tomorrow via a pinned comment. The winner will have 72 hours to respond, confirming that they saw the comment and are indeed the winner of the $50 gift card. There are also some important details in the description below. By participating, you agree to these terms, so feel free to take a look if you're interested. But really, it's quite simple to subscribe and like this video, so I truly invite you to do so. Currently, there's a lot of debate about Brock Purdy this offseason, and that's no surprise. We'll address this topic shortly, but before that, I want to share something I find quite interesting. When you look at the context, it might not seem that crazy at first, but I ask you to follow me for a moment. What was expected of Brock Purdy this season was that he would move more and work harder on the field. However, the reality was that Brock Purdy wasn't in an ideal situation, as he was without Christian McCaffrey in several games. He also had to deal with the absence of Trent Williams in multiple games and a rookie right guard who hadn't yet shown his worth in the early stages of the season. The center of the offensive line struggled, and the right tackle also didn't appear to be a completely reliable option, especially after the last postseason. The left guard had a decent performance for most of the season. In short, Brock Purdy had reasons to feel a bit nervous when he needed to play, and that was evident in the first half of the season. The 49ers decided to adopt a strategy of more frequent passing than in previous years, especially with Brock Purdy as quarterback, who, although only in his second full season, has already proven his value. This change in the game approach meant that Brock Purdy faced a bit more pressure. The scenario was different, and he ended up moving more than ideal. I noticed this in the game against the Cardinals, where I was with my wife. In some plays, I saw he has good escapability, showing quite a bit of skill in that regard, but I wouldn't want to see him doing this all the time. I expected the team to be more creative in some situations. Purdy's ability to avoid negative plays under pressure was extraordinary. He finished the season in 11th place in rushing yards among non-running backs, which is remarkable considering he had only 50 yards the previous year. Despite having substantially fewer rushing attempts than most of the players ahead of him, he was one of the league leaders in scramble yards, highlighting his ability to create plays and, more importantly, turn negative plays into first downs. He finished 11th, even with a significantly lower number of rushing attempts compared to the players ahead of him. Before his success, he stood out among the top players in the league in rushing yards outside the pocket, demonstrating his ability to create opportunities and, more crucially, convert unfavorable plays into first downs. He finished in 11th place, despite attempting considerably fewer rushes than most of the players who preceded him. Although I mentioned 50 yards, I don't recall the exact number. I just know it was much lower in 2023 compared to 2024. Last season, he ranked 12th in sack percentage. That's not exceptional among quarterbacks who threw at least 200 passes, but he was 5th in efficiency in lost points expectation per sack, showing his ability to avoid sacks effectively in 2024. Therefore, this is a quality that places him among the best. Over the past few years, there's been a lot of debate about his performance, especially among fans. It's no surprise that many question his position as quarterback, as this type of discussion is common. When you express support, it's inevitable to receive criticism, as has happened before. The question always remains, is he really the ideal quarterback? We recognize his impressive talent. Later, we'll discuss some recent controversies about his performance. One point to highlight is that in the 2023 postseason, he showed strong performances in games against Green Bay and Detroit. His mobility was a deciding factor, and both games were underrated. This season, his rushing increased considerably, largely not by deliberate choice, but because it didn't seem like a planned strategy. In any case, he managed to be efficient, ranking 5th in lost points expectation per sack, which is notable. It's important to mention, as pointed out by an analyst, that quarterbacks can sometimes create pressure for themselves. According to Pro Football Focus, only 4 quarterbacks were more responsible for generating pressure on themselves than he was in 2024. This is understandable, given that he played in several games without a top running back, wide receiver, and left tackle. The issue of confidence was relevant. We didn't discuss how much the absence of a key player might have impacted his performance, as even during the good early moments of the season, the lack of effective passes compromised his performance. When that player was absent, he lost a reliable receiver. Even so, there was a tendency for him to hold the ball longer than necessary, resulting in avoidable tackles and sacks last year, despite an offensive line that managed to provide some protection. Pro Football Focus data indicates that it had one of the worst sack rates relative to effective drops in the league last year, which highlights an area needing improvement. As we explored ways to improve his game, some intriguing questions emerged, starting with a question that asked whether his career is likely to improve from this point onward. I'm not saying this debate should be taken too seriously, but it's undeniable that he deserves recognition and compensation. The point is whether he should get $35 million or $60 million, and that's a valid debate. However, it's worth considering whether the decisions made by the team will positively or negatively impact his performance, especially considering changes in circumstances regarding resources and the system. Without a doubt, this is a relevant conversation. Comments have been made about how the team complicated things by letting go of an important player, as well as the challenging situation regarding the salary cap, considering another player's contract. Issues about the longevity of some players' careers have also been raised. So, it will be essential to find replacements while investing in a quarterback with a high salary, raising biblical questions, and I'd like to express my disagreement with some of these observations. How long will Williams continue to play? What about George? What's the duration of his time on the field? There's also McCaffrey, whose future with the team is uncertain. The challenge lies in finding replacements for these athletes, especially considering a quarterback who makes $55 million annually. Some questions have been raised that deserve to be discussed, but I don't agree with them. I don't think it's necessary for Brock Purdy's performance to decline this season. If we consider improvement or decline, there are many reasons to believe he can progress. About Debo's departure, will it impact Brock Purdy's performance this new season? I would say yes, because the connection between Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel during practice was notable, so Debo seemed to be the primary target. However, circumstances have changed, and that doesn't mean Debo doesn't have value. He remains an important player, and I believe he will have a more productive season next year compared to the last. However, Deebo Samuel's relevance to Brock Purdy may not be as evident. Let's move on, because I believe Brock Purdy benefits from players who can win in one-on-one matchups. He also does well against zone defenses. However, when facing teams with a more aggressive defense, Brock Purdy often relies heavily on anticipation. He doesn't have the passing precision that some quarterbacks have, capable of placing the ball in tight windows in crucial moments. That skill isn't Brock Purdy's strong suit. But let's continue the analysis. Regarding the salary cap, the contract situation of Brandon Ayuk doesn't worry me as much as it seems to worry others. Brock Purdy's contract is a more relevant issue when we talk about its impact on the salary cap. It's known that some player departures were influenced by Brock's contract situation. How long will Williams play? That's a pertinent question. Therefore, it's essential to find replacements. The contract situation is undoubtedly an important concern when addressing salary cap implications. The departures of some players can be partly attributed to Brock's upcoming contract. This raises the question of how much longer Williams will remain active, which is a valid consideration. At some point, we'll have to discuss the need to replace the left tackle position, especially since he's a Hall of Fame caliber talent. This is a challenging situation to manage. However, we've already seen Brock Purdy's adaptability, especially during periods when Colton McKivitz faced consistency issues. His escape skills have been impressive, so I'm not overly concerned about that at the moment. The 49ers have time, probably another year, to find a suitable replacement. Let's see how this unfolds. There's also the issue of George Kittle's longevity. Ideally, we want a few more seasons from him. The same goes for Christian McCaffrey, who I believe has more valuable years ahead of him. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy's performance will decline simply because these players are aging. In fact, I truly believe Christian McCaffrey is about to have his best season in years. This prediction may sound bold, but I expect a strong performance from him this season. While he may not set record numbers, I believe he'll be in excellent shape and ready to contribute significantly. Although there may be a slight initial delay, I imagine his health will be a great asset this season. In response to this, an interesting perspective was presented. They suggested that the real question should be whether Brock's performance will decline from this point onward. According to this analysis, Brock has maintained a consistent level of play, but results have varied depending on the quality of the talent around him in previous seasons. Going forward, replicating that level of support will be challenging, which could skew the perception of his performance, but I'm convinced he will remain the same player. That's a valid observation. The situation looks different because in previous seasons, a significant number of players were recognized as the best in their positions in the league. Maintaining that quality standard in the supporting team will be a big challenge in the future. Thus, the perception of him may seem somewhat unfavorable, but I'm convinced he'll continue to be the same player. That's a relevant consideration. I value this view. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments on this matter. Additionally, a recent discussion arose about quarterback rankings, and there seems to be a general consensus that this categorization system is quite reasonable. You already know my opinion on this. I'm not a fan of lists like the top 5, top 10, or others. I don't see these rankings as truly useful. I prefer the format that categorizes quarterbacks, allowing for their quality to be recognized. Brock Purdy doesn't fall into that elite group, and that's perfectly acceptable. I accept that right now, there are only 4 players at that level in the league: Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson. There are no other players outside these 4 with that quality. So, if your team doesn't have one of these 4 quarterbacks, you are one of the 28 teams that don't have that talent. In this situation, your aspiration should be to join the next category. Ideally, if you're one of the 28 teams, you'd want to be close to the top quarterback category. In the second category, according to the conversation, are Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Jaden Daniels, C.J. Stroud, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, and Brock Purdy. I could discuss the inclusion of some athletes like Dak Prescott, but generally, I believe this assessment is quite accurate. Analyzing the second category as it's currently structured, it all makes sense to me. All these players, under the right conditions, could become elite quarterbacks, but if placed in unfavorable situations, they could face difficulties and frustrating seasons. I'm convinced that these players could potentially perform poorly and go through a tough season if placed in the wrong circumstances, with ineffective leadership or lack of support. However, I firmly believe that each player in the second category has the ability to reach elite status. These athletes have the potential to shine or face significant challenges if they find themselves in unsuitable situations, under management that doesn't work well, or without the necessary resources. I sincerely believe that everyone in the second category has the ability to reach elite status. It's relevant to highlight that even in difficult moments for teams, athletes in this category often perform admirably, something that is not typically expected from the third category. Interestingly, there are notable absences from this ranking, including well-known and well-paid athletes like Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa. While I maintain this assessment, I acknowledge that many may disagree, especially regarding Trevor Lawrence, who seems to be a source of frustration for Jacksonville Jaguars fans. I value your opinions in the comments, as always. Changing the subject, I want to address the idea of the supporting cast, which was mentioned earlier. A pertinent observation was made about insights from important leaders this week. This had already been commented on, but the team's ongoing effort to replicate success every year has had a significant impact on the current roster formation. It was recognized that this discussion was tied to the draft strategy. This offseason is expected to be a crucial learning experience for their approach, moving away from the mentality of forever trying to replicate past success. This vision is particularly intriguing for a team that invests high-level resources annually over multiple seasons. The team in question has certainly proven exceptional, but when challenges arise, they can be quite critical. An analysis of the team's 2024 draft class highlighted its potential, something I find noteworthy, especially considering the team hasn't been aggressive in free agency to make significant acquisitions. It seems like the opportunity for major acquisitions has passed. So the question remains, how will the team deal with the issues surrounding their supporting cast to develop a more effective system instead of just trying to replicate past strategies? The team is clearly not making major moves in the market, and opportunities for that seem to have passed. So, how will the 49ers deal with the issues related to their supporting cast to develop a more effective system, rather than just repeating previous approaches? A recent analysis of the 2024 draft class reveals that San Francisco's last season was disappointing, but this cannot be attributed to their draft choices. The guard selected in the third round stood out, registering 1.33 wins above replacement and posting an impressive overall ranking, placing sixth at his position. Despite injuries in the secondary defense, the performance of several players helped ease those challenges. A first-round pick, even though limited to 11 games, managed to accumulate 1.12 wins above replacement with a decent receiving grade. It's worth noting that none of the rookies performed negatively in wins above replacement, which is quite remarkable. Now, as we reach the 16-minute mark in this conversation, it's time to highlight the main takeaway of today. Brock Purdy is an exceptional quarterback with several qualities that excite me, and I truly believe he can still develop. The talent around him will need to evolve, and this transformation has already started. The next season promises to be different, leaving behind some of the fun moments we saw from certain players in the past. However, a new culture is being created, maintaining key pieces to support this new direction. I'm genuinely excited to see how the team approaches this draft. For me, this is the most anticipated draft in the era of the current coaching staff. I'm really excited about the strategy they will adopt, as this will lay the groundwork for the team's future. If the 2024 draft is successful, it will position the franchise among those who can consistently pull off successful drafts, which statistically tends to provide significant long-term benefits. Address this topic, as it serves as the foundation for what's to come. This is the moment. When the 2024 draft goes well, all that's needed to become one of those teams with consecutive successful drafts is to understand that, statistically, having two really good drafts in a row tends to bring positive returns for many years. So, if they manage this and also have a good 2025 draft, stay tuned, because these 49ers might look a little younger and better. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, there are only 22 days left until the 2025 NFL Draft. It's important to stay informed and enjoy this content, as I'll be bringing you updates and information you won't want to miss. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to 49ers Zone and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the San Francisco 49ers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In the midst of a highly competitive NFC West division, rumors have begun swirling about a potential blockbuster move that could shake the entire NFL. Micah Parsons, the Dallas Cowboys standout linebacker, is reportedly on the radar of the San Francisco 49ers. The question now is whether the 49ers can land one of the league's most electrifying defensive players and what it would mean for their Super Bowl aspirations. Parsons, who has quickly emerged as one of the NFL's premier pass rushers, has set the league on fire with his relentless play. With 14 sacks in 2023 alone, including an NFC Defensive Player of the Week performance in Week 2, his presence on the field is nothing short of game-changing. As the 49ers continue to build a championship-contending roster, adding a player of Parsons' caliber could be the move that elevates them from elite to unstoppable. The 49ers' defense, already one of the most formidable in the league, could reach even greater heights with Parsons in the mix. Known for his ability to disrupt the quarterback, make tackles for loss, and force fumbles, Parsons would be an ideal fit in the 49ers' defensive scheme. Paired with their already dominant front seven, his versatility could help the team overcome its toughest playoff opponents, especially in high-pressure situations. But could the 49ers realistically pull off this high-profile move? With Parsons' contract set to expire in 2025, the Cowboys are under pressure to decide whether they want to commit long-term to the linebacker or entertain trade offers. If the 49ers were to pursue him, they would need to make a significant offer that could either include key players or high draft picks, both of which could give them the edge they need to make a Super Bowl run. The possibility of Parsons joining the 49ers would send shockwaves through the NFL, but it's still a long shot. As the 2024 season continues, all eyes will be on both teams as they weigh their options. Stay tuned. This potential trade could redefine the future of the NFC. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the San Francisco 49ers, make sure to subscribe to 49ers Zone and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.